We're recording. Welcome. So I often, I think a good question to ask is what do we really want? I think that maybe that's the most important question. What do I really want? Because, well, if you look at your, just remember as best you can the last several days and the things that you've wanted or you've thought you've wanted. Have you noticed that the things that you've wanted or thought you wanted have uh, there doesn't seem to be a consistency to it. Have you noticed that? You want one thing, one moment, and then something happens, and then you say, ah, this is the worst thing. I don't want that. I want something else. So this unreliability of our compass, let's say, okay, I think it should be concerning. So imagine that I've got a big boat, and I say I'm looking for crew members, and I say we're going to sail out on the open ocean. We're gonna go. We're gonna find a new route. And you say, well, do you have a compass? And I'll say, yeah, here's my compass. And I show you the compass, and the compass is just spinning wildly. We don't know which direction is north. We don't know which direction is south. We don't know which direction is east. We have no idea. Would you want to come on this adventure with me? I hope you would say no. Because that would be just it's a suicide mission. So why would we do it? And I would say the only reason to do it is confusion. I think confusion is a good word to summarize it. I mean, we could elaborate on that. We could say it's not just confusion; it's desperation. It's probably another good word, but I think confusion is the best word, right? I mean, why would you come on this mission with me if my compass is broken? The only reason to do it would be if you're confused, because you might be confused, and then you might invent justifications, right? You might invent something. You might say, well, whatever. I mean, fill in the blank. Doesn't matter, because it's a holy mission, because I've got nothing left to lose, because I don't know, whatever. We invent. You can just see in your life in your day-to-day life, don't you invent all kinds of justifications for the ongoing lack of clarity? So this having the clarity of our having clarity, let's just say clarity. We'll elaborate a little bit more on that in a moment. Let's just say having clarity, I think, is the most important thing. So what do I actually want? Because if I don't know what I actually want, then what am I going to be doing? And you can take a look at your life and you can answer that question really easily, right? You can just look, I can look at my life, you can look at your life, we can all look at our lives, and we can see really, really easily what is this life like when I don't know, when I don't have clarity, when I don't know what I actually want, when I'm not clear on what I actually want. And we can see the exact answer to that, because if I'm not clear on what I actually want, which clearly you look at your life, you see you've never been really clear on what you want. Maybe you have a good year and you're sure about what you want, or maybe a good decade and you're sure about what you want, but then that changes. So if we don't have that clarity about what we actually want, what we're going to be doing is changing course all the time. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound very appealing to me, to not be oriented, to not know which way is which, to not know what I actually want, to not know why am I here? What am I doing? What is the, why am I going through the day? Why am I doing this? What am I hoping to achieve? What am I hoping that will I'll accomplish with my actions, because I am taking action. Unless I'm not, it's another case which we'll get to hopefully in a moment. But isn't it true? I mean, so you tell me, please let me know if you disagree. Okay, here's what I'm proposing. If you look at your life, what I'm proposing is that you will see that you don't know what you want. You'll see that showing up in it. You might think you know what you want, but if you tell the truth, you'll see your life reveals to you, the unfolding of your life story reveals you don't know what you want, because one moment you think you want one thing and the next moment you think you want a different thing, and you don't have that clarity. So first of all, can you see that? And then second of all, can you see that if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always gotten? So if you're satisfied with that, by all means, please continue, right? I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody what they must do. I don't know what you must do. All I can say is, if you're dissatisfied with what the status quo has been in your life, if you're dissatisfied with that, then I know that I have something of value to share with you, something of value to offer. And so I want to be clear about that. You know, if you're really happy and satisfied with the status quo in your life, what's the problem? There's no problem. I'm not here to tell anybody. I'm not God's private messenger. I don't have some kind of divine message of, you know, how we're supposed to all behave and conduct ourselves. All I'm interested in is, if you perceive that there's some problem, if you perceive that, if you're dissatisfied with something in your life, if you're dissatisfied with the status quo, if you perceive yourself to be suffering in some way, if you're unhappy in some way, then what I'm proposing is, let's just take a look together. And what I'm suggesting is that if you really look, what you'll probably see is that you are dissatisfied, and that dissatisfaction is habitual. and that you've never known, you've never had clarity really consistently on what it is that you actually want. And that lack of clarity doesn't produce, but it contributes to, it's a key factor in the ongoing habitual reactive behavior, which maintains the status quo, which produces the status quo. So I hope that's clear. Let me try to just summarize that one more time, because I'm not sure that I did a good job. Okay, so if we are dissatisfied with the status quo in our life, if we wake up in the morning and we look out and we say, ugh, or ooh, or ooh, then maybe we don't have clarity on what we want. And what we're doing is therefore by default, we're continuing to maintain, to do what it is that we've always done, which produces the same results over and over and over and over and over and over. And the more that happens, the more that we're likely to perceive that there's something wrong that we need to fix. And so what will we do? We'll consult our conditioned mind to tell us what to do. And what's it going to do? It's going to tell us to do what it knows, which is the status quo, which is what we've always done, which is going to produce more of what we don't want. And we could fool ourselves for, I don't know, a long time. Surprising how long we can fool ourselves. But I believe that you're here. I mean, many of you, I'll just scroll through. I mean, many of you are, you've been here many times, so you know generally what generally, you know, kind of what I'm going to talk about, because it's always similar. So there's something about what I'm sharing that speaks to you in some way. There's something about it. And I don't believe that anybody would continue to show up to these meetings unless they really could connect with what it is I'm saying, which is that you have a sense that there's something off, there's something wrong, you don't know what it is, you're tired of it. You are at least open to the possibility. You have some kind of sense that maybe what I'm saying is true, that maybe there is another way, because you've tried your way and your way hasn't worked. I mean, however many years it's been, you've tried your way, it didn't work. You kind of are seeing that. So then what I'm proposing is step one is what do we actually want? And now the reason this is important, I've already kind of said, but I'll say it again in different words. The reason it's important, let me flip it around, is because when we know what we want, when we're clear on what we want, then we have direction. Now that's obvious, right? I mean, in the mundane sense of your ordinary life, your day-to-day life, you know you need direction, right? I mean, if you want to go to the store, you need to know which direction the store is in. You got a lot of directions to choose from. If you go any of those directions other than the correct direction, it's going to take a long time before you end up where you're wanting to go. So having direction is very helpful. Really the essential, the essence of direction, I would say, it's not like a cardinal direction, it's the essential direction. The essence of direction is, what do you want? And that's the thing that most of us don't have clarity on. Because we don't have clarity on that, we're going any which way. Or more like it, we're just continuing to go the same way and imagining that it's a different way, but it's always the same way because it just maintains the status quo. So no matter what we do, no matter what we think, we might think that we're thinking something original. We might think that we're thinking something new, but we're not. It's just a reaction. It's another reaction. All the thoughts are more reactions. Every single one of them. All of them. Always. You don't have new thoughts. They're really, they're just repetitions. So let's look at what do we want? Because again, if we don't know what we want, here's another point about this that I want to make. Okay, is that if we don't know what we want, then what we want will appear offensive to us. What I mean is, what we really want, what we actually truly want in our heart of hearts, what we're really deeply wanting more than anything else, that will appear to be offensive to us. It will appear to be in the wrong direction. We will misidentify it as wrong. So we'll look out into the vast sea of possibilities, and we will look around 360 degrees, and we will say, I don't know. Oh, that, definitely not that. That's the one thing we'll say for sure, not that. And that will be the one right direction. You see, we'll say, I don't know, that one could be okay. That one, yeah, I'm not sure, but this one, that one, definitely not. And that's the only one that we actually want, you see. But we don't know that. So why is it that we could be so disoriented? How could that actually happen to us? Well, I guess you could look back through the story of your life and kind of come to the answer of that, which is shit happened. And you mistook innocently, as we all do, that stuff that happened to be something other than just that. So you started to assign meaning to it. The meaning that we assign, so there's a, what is this? Heb? I think it's Hebb's rule. Is it Hebb's rule? It's a, like, neurons that fire together, wire together is the, I think it's Hebb's rule. It's like a, you know, if you were to study, I don't know, neurobiology or something, that's one of the things that you would learn probably. Okay, it's all it means is, if I eat pizza and then and simultaneous to that, I feel anything, whatever. We go either any direction with it. Let's say good. Okay, let's have it. Okay, so I feel a pleasant sensation, one that I like, and I'm eating pizza. There doesn't have to be any connection between the two. In fact, there is not a connection. I think there's a causative connection, but there's not. Because those things are happening together, my brain is going to suggest to me pizza makes me feel good. So then these two things that happen together simultaneously, they're unrelated, other than the fact that they happen to coincide temporarily, right? They're happening at the same time. It's the only connection. My brain will say, those are connected. One causes the other. Your brain will do the same. That's what our brains do. They are machines that make meaning. And they do this by simply saying, these two things are connected. One causes the other. That's it. It just says because, and you say, well, why? Well, because. That's actually the best answer that we can come up with. Well, because. You say, oh, it's self-evident. Pizza makes me feel good. Every time I eat pizza, I feel good, even if it's not true. So the things that have happened in our lives have happened, and we have created meaning in which we've said that I know that these things are linked. I know one thing causes the other. I know that when I eat pizza, I feel good. I know that when I eat pea soup, I feel nauseous. I know that I like I like liberal progressive values. I know that I like conservative values. I know that that Jesus is the one true way. I know that Allah is the one true way. I know, like you don't know any of these things because none of them are actually true. None of them. None of them. None of the things that you believe. Nothing. Not a single thing. None of them. But we believe that they're true. And so we go about navigating our lives, but our compass is broken. We don't know anything. We don't know what direction is what. So we've created all this meaning and we don't, and then we forget about it. We forget that we created the meaning. So then here we are and we think, no, that meaning is intrinsic. Pizza really does make me feel good. We think that that's actually true. I mean, people think a lot of things. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed that there are a lot of people who genuinely seem to believe things that to you are insane? Have you noticed that? I mean, how is it possible that it's like, I think there's about a third of the world population identifies as Christian. Okay, so about a third of the population, if you were to ask them in a public forum, they would say, I believe that Jesus Christ is the one true way. They might not all believe it, but some of them do. I'd be willing to bet a good portion of them actually believe that. But what does that mean? That means that at least 67% of the population does not believe that. And then I don't know the exact percentages of other world religions, but you can see that there are these fairly divergent religious views, and there are large percentages of people who believe in them, who believe in them to the extent that they're willing to die for it, and they believe that the others are wrong. Because you can't have it both. You can't have that Allah is the one true way and Jesus is the one true way. You can't have both. By definition, if there's only one true way, there's only one true way. Unless Jesus and Allah are the same, but don't propose that to anybody. So I've gotten off track here. Let's come back. Okay, so what is it that we want? And if we don't see this, then if we don't really recognize what we want, then what we're going to do is we're going to continue to maintain the status quo, which is only it's an actually meaningless collection of meanings that we have constructed. But we will suffer as a result of this. And this is an important point. We will suffer as a result because we don't know what we want. And therefore we believe mistakenly that what we want is the status quo. And you can see that this is true, okay? So check this out. There have been times recently, for every one of you, I know that this is true. There have been times recently in which you have felt something different. You have felt in a different way than what you consider to be the correct way. Isn't that true? So you say, well, I'm feeling off. I'm feeling weird. I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling myself. Isn't that true? We all have these experiences. You're going throughout the day, and as long as the status quo is maintained well enough, you say, yeah, okay, I'm up, I'm down, but whatever, I'm okay, I'm me. But then you have this experience. Well, you say, it's okay, I'm me, but oh God, please help me. Because secretly, you don't believe that you can do this anymore. Secretly, the strain of it all is too much. You don't tell that to your wife or to your husband or to your children, unless you do. But most of us, that's like a secret thing that we keep to ourselves. It's like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm holding it together. It's okay. It's okay. But secretly, oh God, please help me. I can't do it anymore. I can't do this. So but then what happens is we have an experience that's different, genuinely different than the status quo. And what do? We say, oh God, I don't like this at all. I feel weird. I don't want to be like this. I don't know how to function like this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be like this. I've got to get back to normal. Isn't that true? So you even though the normal, the status quo is your secret torment, and in your diary you confess that you hate your life. Not all of it, obviously, but like certain aspects of it you just can't stand. They're torturous, make you want to, you don't know what to do. You just, I don't know, I can't suffer this anymore. I can't endure this anymore. This is so hellish. I can't do it. You don't know exactly why, but something about it just seems to be unbearable. And then you get exactly what you've been in your secret prayers praying for, but they've been so secret you don't even admit them to yourself. So then when the prayer is answered, you don't even know that it's been answered, because it's being answered when you feel strange. And so this is why I'm saying, if you don't know what you want, you're going to work hard to maintain the status quo. You're going to actually be working against your deepest desire. Your deepest desire is for something truly new, truly fresh, truly inspired. Not your idea of inspired, because your idea of inspired is something that you experienced 25 years ago in a moment of whatever. You were in the Sistine Chapel, or it was during orgasm, or whatever. Something happened, psychedelics, or God, I don't know, whatever. You're on the subway and just all of a sudden it just struck you, and you had this moment of something, and then that becomes your reference point. You say that. But you see, all of these things, they're just it's just meaning that we're assigning, and then we believe it, and then we work hard to maintain the story. It's a facade. Can you see? You're like a pinball that's just being bounced around. Every time that there's anything that happens, you just say, oh, I want to just make it stop. So how can we get clear on what we actually want? And I would say, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a million different ways to get clear on that. I'll just propose one, and that is to get really clear on what you don't want. Maybe not the most efficient way. I don't know. I mean, I can't say, but it's one that actually works, because otherwise, here's what happens. You see, you say, well, I mean, I'll just put it to you. I say, if I do this wide open and I just say, okay, what do you want? And you don't know. How could you know? Because the one who's going to try to answer that question is, it's a collection of meaning that you have created over a lifetime. It's the status quo. Now, it can't answer that question because it doesn't have access to that information. It's like, try to, ask Alexa or Siri or any of these artificial intelligences, what is the meaning of life, or what should I do with my life, or anything. It's like, it doesn't know. How could it know? And you do basically the same if you say, what do I want? If you just like do that wide open, what do I want? I don't know. I want to be the king. I want to be emperor. I don't know. Maybe I want to have just be really rich. I don't know. Doesn't know. So let's not put our fate in the hands of an artificial intelligence, please. Can you see that your so-called intelligence is an artificial intelligence? Your intelligence, so-called, is an artificial intelligence. It's no different from Alexa. It's not actually infused by newness. It's actually all a collection of, it's a graveyard. It's basically what it is. It's a graveyard. And we spend our lives digging around in the graveyard. What do I want? What do I want? Digging up in the graveyard. What do I want? Ooh, how about this bone? No, digging in the graveyard. What do I want? So instead, let's just see what we don't want, and let's get clear on what we don't want. So okay, if you're married or live with other people, or you relate to other people, maybe you have somebody somewhere in your life who you have some kind of relationship with, then you might see in your in the dynamic of that relationship, you can see pretty easily the stuff that you don't want, right? Like it happens. It comes up. You're like, I don't want that. Now, what is it you don't want? You think what you don't want is what the other person is doing. Isn't that true? You think, oh God, they're doing it again. If they would just stop that, my life would be better. Why are they doing that? Why are they making my life so miserable? But here's where we can really tell the truth. How is it that that person or the circumstances or the situation or anything, how can that actually cause me a problem? What is the problem? What is it that I don't want? This is, because if we just stay on the surface of what is it that I don't want, we'll say, well, I don't want that person, I don't want that person, I don't want that situation, I don't want any of these things, and then we kind of become reclusive, like Nikola Tesla, feeding pigeons. So instead of that, what I'm proposing is let's get really honest and let's see what is really going on. Okay, so because I've noticed, because I'm married, and I've got a lot of disagreements with my wife. I say a lot, I don't know, not that many actually, but some disagreements with my wife about things, and so I notice that this happens. We have a disagreement, and then my conditioned mind, it proposes she's the problem. Doesn't your conditioned mind do that? I mean, am I the only one? Surely your conditioned mind does that. It's because that's what it does. That's the problem. It right away it wants to identify the problem. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so I have an uncle who has been married 3 times. He's been married the last time for quite successfully. I mean, like for a long time, for 20 years or so. Maybe more than that, 30 years. And but I noticed that he married the same woman several times, 3 times. different woman, different name, looks slightly different, but same woman, same sort of personality. And this is what we do. You see, like when we're saying that it's about that thing over there, that circumstance, that person, then we swap it out. But what do? We swap it out for the same thing. Because why? Because we've very superficially determined what we don't want. Say, I don't want that particular packaging. Well, but then on the second marriage, maybe you say, oh, I thought it was going to be different, but it turns out it's the same. Well, why is it the same? It's the same because we're working hard to recreate the same, to recreate the familiar. But we do it pretending like we're trying to get away from what we don't want. We think we've identified what we don't want, but we're wrong. So we have to look a little bit deeper than that. What is it that's actually happening? What is it that I actually don't want? And this is where it gets clearer. Okay. Look and see for yourself right now, really honestly, Can you find anything? Can you find any event, circumstance, situation, or person in your life who has caused you problems? And you'll probably say, yeah, of course. I can think of a million of them. A lot of people and situations and circumstances have caused me problems. But wait, not so fast, because how is that possible? I mean, maybe if somebody physically assaults you, we could make that argument. I'd rather not, because that's sort of fortunately, it's kind of an edge case. So let's just not even look at that one right now. We could address that if we really needed to, but it's so much of an edge case. Let's not do it. Because overwhelmingly, the problems that we think that we're suffering from are not physical assaults, right? I mean, blessedly, that's not the problem that we're having. We're having the problem of that person doesn't agree with me, that person doesn't appreciate me, that person, this situation it just doesn't feel quite right. Those are the kinds of problems that we have. And I want to know, how is it that anybody can do that to you? So if my wife and I have a disagreement, and then I feel all righteous and angry and how dare she and all that kind of stuff, how has she done that to me? By what means does she open me up and push the buttons? How does she accomplish that? Sometimes without even saying anything, touching me, doing it, like just a look, or not even a look, just not exactly the right response that I had in mind. And then I think I've got a problem. Oh, she's the one that's doing it. How? How does she do that? You see what I'm saying? How on earth does she do that? Well, the answer is she doesn't. She doesn't have that capacity. Black magic, yeah. No, she doesn't have that capacity. She can't do that. So this is what I'm saying. If I don't have clarity, I will look out in the vast sea of possibility, and I'll have total lack of clarity, except for one thing, which will be the opposite. I will have it inverted. I will say that one thing, definitely no, that's the only thing that I actually want. But I will be working hard to get rid of that. So let's look at let's get a little bit more specific. So, and I hope that you're following me on this. If you're not, please ask questions. Let me say, yeah, and I'm recording this. It will be up on YouTube publicly after this. So if you do wish to speak, all you have to do is unmute yourself, but that will be in the recording. If you don't wish to be in the recording, you can type in the chat, and you can do that, and I will respond that way. Yes, great, thank you. So I'll just read that, because that is I think such a creature of habit. Zoom changed the menus around, and I can't find things. Okay, here it says, I stumble with seeing that nobody does anything to me when I return to my childhood and my father's imprint. Yes. So that's great. Thank you for having the courage to share that, because I think a lot of people probably have the same challenge. So we look and we find something, we've got something, and we say, that's, that I just don't know how that person didn't do something to me. I don't know how it seems like they did something to me, or that situation, that circumstance, that event, that thing that happened did something to me. So let's look and see, okay, how is it that that could be? So we commonly accept, and in our cultures maybe, okay, we commonly accept that people, circumstances, events, etc., do something to us, that they can affect us, that they can have an effect on how we, what we believe, how we perceive, how we feel, that they can alter our experience in usually in negative ways and persistent ways. So there's the obvious thing, okay, which is, and I won't even go with that. Okay, let's just look at it more head on. So how, I really want you to see, take a look. How is it? So let's start with something that has a little bit less charge to it, and then we can start to apply it to something that has more charge, so that we can just start to see, let's start with something that's a little softer, or maybe there's a little bit of a charge to it, but we can maybe see this more easily. So pick anything, anything, any relationship, any event, anything that has a little bit of a charge to it. You kind of feel like, yeah, I think they did something to me. I think they affected me. I think they produced this in me. Okay. And then I want you to look and see how did that happen? What is the mechanism by which this person or event or circumstance produced this effect or this alteration in you? How did that happen? What is the mechanism by which that happened? So what, and like I said, if there's actually a physical assault, we could address that. I'd rather not start there, just because that's going to be a little bit more tangled up. So if possible, let's just start with something that's not, doesn't have as much of a charge, just so that we can see this more clearly, and then we can always expand it to that. So can you see that if certainly if nobody has physically assaulted you, okay, or not if nobody, but in this particular instance, if there was not a physical assault, what happened? There were words said, words not said. So there were sounds, maybe, or lack of sounds. An expectation of certain sounds got different sounds. Isn't that so? It's like there was an expectation of one thing, got something different. There were some sounds that happened, some vibrations that happened. Isn't that so? So how did that affect this change in you? How did it do that to you? So you say, oh, but I feel bad. Isn't that so? You say, I feel bad, or I felt bad. Well, how did those sounds, or lack of sounds, or the mismatch in expectation and reality, how did that produce that change in you? What was the mechanism for that? We commonly accept that that's just true, that just happens. If somebody calls me a name that I don't like, then, oh, they hurt my feelings. But how? How is it that somebody's making some noise, especially one that's probably not all that loud, relatively speaking? How does that hurt me? How does that produce a change in me? Can anybody answer that? I'm really curious. Do you know the answer to that question? I mean, don't you commonly accept that that's true? Don't you commonly accept that if somebody calls you a name that's hurtful to you, or if somebody insults you, that's hurtful to you, or if somebody says, I don't love you anymore, that's hurtful to you? Isn't that, I mean, isn't that true? Don't we commonly accept that that's true? So then my question is, If you perceive that you're not good enough, or somebody says you're not good enough. But what is the mechanism? How does that translate? Yeah. By all means. You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hey, Joey.
You're very quiet for some reason.
Oh, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's better.
Okay. You sort of have to have the training already in place to understand with your mind what's been said. I mean, if someone yells at you in a foreign language that you have no idea about,
Yeah.
then you can get the idea. I mean, it can be, it can be scary if someone's filled with rage and sputtering at you in Albanian. Then it's sort of like, wow, that person's mad. But it hasn't. They may have said something really specific about their idea of me, but I don't get it.
Right. That's right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yes. I actually quite like that. Yeah, that's very clear. Because that's right. If it's something that's already there, it's not an introduction of something new. Nothing new is introduced. That's very, very clear. Yes, that's right. Nothing new is introduced. It's actually, you're just drawing from something from the past, something that's already there, something that you already believe is true.
Well, but it's a new arrangement of past elements that you've absorbed, possibly. I mean, it's recycling.
Yeah, you could call it new, but that would be yes. You could in the common way of speaking things.
A seemingly novel rearrangement of elements you've already had.
Yes, yeah, but fundamentally not new. I mean,
can't be.
Like, you can do it's like when I was a kid, there was a fad for a little while, slap bracelets. It's like, and I'm sure you come up with a lot of variations on the theme. You could have one that's just plain. You could have one that's got flowers painted on it. You say, oh, that's a novel rearrangement. Yeah, but come on, it's not really. So yeah, but that's exactly it. It's something that's already there. It's not new. You're not consulting anything new. You're not relying on anything new. You're not resting in newness. Your loyalty is 100% with the graveyard instead of with newness in that particular case. And that's it. Is, you see, there's no mechanism by which a person can call us names or say something to us or make sounds or look at us that is going to, I say no mechanism. Is that true? In the common sense, okay? In the let's say, apart from divine intervention, okay? Because the majority of what's happening is a recycling of the past. That's what's going on in the world. So in order to have something truly new, there has to be a divine intervention. It has to come from outside of all of that construct of what we already think we know. So in the world, we can say safely, in the world, which is constructed entirely of recycled past, nobody has the capacity at all, not even remotely, to produce those changes in you. The effects that occur are effects that you are doing. So when the person is shouting, you produce your state. You make because you have this belief conditioning that says, when somebody shouts at me, I should feel this way. You blame them shouting for how you feel. But it's only because you have that belief, you see. It's only because you believe that when somebody shouts, I feel this way. Well, so therefore you are feeling that way, you see. You're producing that concurrent with them shouting. You're just doing what you've always done. You're just maintaining the status quo. And you say, I don't like this. I don't want this. But what is it you don't want? What you're rejecting is looking clearly in the one direction that will give you what you actually want. So let's look in that direction. If you're willing, if you dare. Because I should warn you, when you look in this direction, and I know that might not be clear quite yet, but I'm going to point you in this direction. If you don't want to look in this direction, if you do look in this direction, you're going to see something that, if you really honestly see it, it's going to be uncomfortable. Because you're going to see that you're a liar. And you're going to see that you're confused. And you're going to see that you don't know anything. And you're going to see that all of your whole life, all of your accomplishments and all of your progress and all of your, all of that is worthless. So beware. Okay. On the other hand, what it offers is freedom. Because before you see this, then all you do is blindly work to maintain the status quo, all the while deluding yourself into believing that you're striving to accomplish something new. And you can not believe me, but I promise you there are many 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds who wouldn't have believed me either. And they thought, I'm different. I'm smarter, I'm better, I'm whatever. They have some idea. And then what? 40, 50 years go by and they're 80 or 90 years old and they say, and I want to know, did it work? Did your way work? And I promise you their way didn't work. So we can delude ourselves into thinking, oh, I'm special, I'm unique, I'm different, I'm not like everybody else. Please. We're all of us. No, there's nobody out there who's so much smarter than the rest of us that they are excluded from this same trap, because it's the fundamental trap. Thinking, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what nobody else has ever done. I'm going to beat the system. So if you think you're going to beat the system, good luck. I mean, actually, let me rephrase that. If you think you're going to beat the system, I sincerely hope for your early failure. Because I sincerely hope that you recognize sooner rather than later that you're not going to beat the system, that real happiness isn't found in that direction, that you're not going to become content because you're the smartest, most successful person around. So if you're interested, and I've given you warning, so I assume you are interested, let's look at this together. So when somebody does something, anything, whatever, so it could be something that happened yesterday, it could be something that happened this morning, it could be something that happened 50 years ago, it could be something that happened 70 years ago, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, if you think you believe in any way that that event or that person caused you to feel the way you felt or the way you feel now, especially, and you think that you've got to somehow sort out something with that, with regard to that, that you've got to fix something or set something right, so that you're wrestling with this, you're struggling with this, then let's look. Let's look now. Let's look and see what's actually really truly going on. So what prevents you right now? Is there anything that prevents you right now from recognizing this present freedom that's here now? What is it? And is there anything, can you find anything that prevents you from recognizing this present freedom now? You can answer this for yourself really easily. All you have to do is recognize this present freedom now, and then you can answer it right away. There's nothing that prevents that. So take a look now and see, is there anything that is actually obscuring? Yes, now you've gotten right to the heart of it. The absence of the feeling of freedom as I conceive it. Yes, that's right. That's it. That's all. The absence of the feeling that I believe is the correct feeling, the desirable feeling, as I believe it. I believe that that feeling is my goal. I believe that that is my only measure of whether I'm successful or not. It's the only way that I can determine what I want. Just this one feeling. Sadly, if you get that feeling, it won't do it for you. Not for long. That's the problem with feelings, is that they don't really satisfy. About a month, you were lucky. I had a similar thing. Yeah, I had about a month of bliss, and then it disappeared in an instant, like in, in an instant. It was like one moment bliss, and then the next moment gone, and it was devastating. 4 months, great. Yeah, I mean, there are people who have it's like 10 years, and then it vanishes. And this is why I often say that when people are pursuing these states, or when people think that they've arrived because they've gotten some state, that they are in for a very, very big disappointment, because the states come and go. So if your okayness is, it feels so good, well, while it does, and so, and by the way, so you believe. But here's the thing about it, is that it's, and this is what I'm saying, it's all just your belief. There's no further substance to it. It's, do you see, can you see this? This is what I'm talking about when I say, when you really see this, on the one hand, this offers you liberation. On the other hand, it's a kind of death. It's a kind of death, because it's the death of everything that you've identified as. So it can be challenging. But you think that you know what feels good, and you think you know what feels bad. And you say, well, it's just self-evident. Of course, pain is bad and pleasure is good. But I'm telling you, you don't know. You really don't know, because I thought that that bliss that I experienced for however long I experienced that for, I thought that was it. I genuinely thought, I've arrived. This is it. This is wonderful. Here I am. This is what I've been looking for. But it was only in its disappearance that I was offered the, I don't know what you want to call it, insight, discovery, that my freedom, I say my freedom, that's not really the right way to put it. It's just freedom. Freedom is not dependent upon a state. It's really not dependent on a state. It's only dependent upon having clarity about what you actually want. I recently read, and I can't give you the, I can't cite the original source of it, but I read of a study in which it was a long-term study of people and they asked some questions about, they tried to use some way of judging people's contentment and happiness and so forth in life. And the conclusion of the authors of the study was that people that experiences of stress are not inherently predictors of a person's happiness or longevity or health. What is a predictor is how a person perceives that stress. In fact, people who reported very high levels of sustained stress for most of their lives often actually had lived the longest, are the healthiest, and have the highest levels of reported happiness if they perceive that stress has a greater purpose, a higher purpose, is in alignment with what they really want. You see, it's just about understanding what they really want, and then the rest of it isn't so important. But most of us have that inverted. We think the way that we are feeling along the way, we think that our judgment of what this present feeling is and means, we think that's the most important thing. And so we're constantly being steered in all the wrong directions because we reject what it is that we are conditioned to reject, which is in fact where our, I'll use a charged word, but why not, salvation lies. Our salvation is in that. Our salvation is in the one place that we habitually reject. And we have all kinds of, we just say, it's self-evident, that's bad, it's wrong, it's not okay. But the question is, how long do you want to suffer for that belief? You know, you can insist all the way to the grave, kicking and screaming, it's bad, it's wrong, it's not okay, I can't accept it, I can't allow it, I can't see it, I totally reject it. And you can be very righteous. You can say, God's on my side, the world's on my side, the devil's on my side, the majority's on my side, whoever, it's all on your side, everyone's in agreement with you, and you can go to your grave that way. But why? What will you get for that? What will be the big prize for that? I'm saying, have the courage to see that you're a liar. I don't mean that in a mean way, but just like, it's just to call it what it is. Just see that you're a liar. You're a liar. You just lie and lie and lie and lie. And it's not malicious. It's innocent. You know, it's like my kids, I see, you know, it's like they try stuff out. They're like, well, I think my parents are going to be unhappy about this. So let's see, what could I say? What story could I tell? And that's what we're always doing. We're just spinning these different stories, trying to make it feel better. Right? Don't we do that? We try it. We're like, oh God, it's all me. It's all my fault. I'm so terrible. And then we switch gears. It's like, wait a second, I'm not that bad. It's everybody else. They don't have patience with me. We just spin different stories, trying to figure out which one is going to help me feel better. But we're not looking in the one direction that will actually be fruitful for us, which is to see how we're just liars. And it's totally unnecessary. So what I'm saying is, how does my wife produce this? How does my wife produce these reactions in me? The answer is she doesn't. And look and see that this is true for you. So somebody does something, something happens, and how does this change in feeling or state come about? They didn't do it. You did it. So let's look and see what actually is happening. So there's some sounds happening, right? Blah, 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 blah. You're no good. You didn't take out trash. You didn't do what you say you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then, and it could be, it could be an Albanian. And that's, if it's the look, you say, oh, now how does that turn into this so-called effect, right? Because we say that's the cause and this is the effect. Isn't that so? You're always at the effect. You are the effect. In your story, your story starring you as lead character in your life, you as the lead character, you're always at the effect. It's like some kind of and it's like you're like Charlie Chaplin. You see, you're always at the effect. There's always some bigger thing that's victimizing you. And so your whole life becomes a reaction to that. And what I'm saying is, see that actually your whole life, as you have determined your life, is just a reaction to that. It's all one lie after another, one reaction after another. And right now it's possible to stop and just look and see. And what do you see? Can you see, as I'm suggesting, can you see the absolute emptiness of, and can you just see that your beliefs, your claims are completely void? There's no truth to them. They don't have any validity. They're not real. They're not real. They're not truthful. They're not actually what is happening. Within the story, we say, they did it to me. They caused me to be upset. They victimized me. Life is doing this to me. And I'm saying, no. Can't be. It's just not possible. Look and see. There's no way in which that happens. You've probably heard this kind of language used before, but maybe you didn't quite understand it. So you've probably heard about like uncaused. In spiritual talks, people talk about uncaused. Have you heard that? Have you heard uncaused? Or maybe you've heard you've never been touched. Have you heard that one? You've never been touched. Like nothing has ever touched you. Nothing has ever done anything to you. Just in the, yeah, it just means, it's a private comment. It just means you remain untarnished, unblemished. Whatever happens in life, all the things that we think are causing all of these effects to us, we can actually look and see that, in fact, we've never been harmed. We remain as we always have been, totally open, totally free, here and now. So we've maybe heard that kind of thing, but then, you know, it's usually just discussed. It's just usually like thrown out there, like just something, you know, whatever, more stuff. And you're like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sure, it sounds nice. And then you can repeat it and you say, I'm untouched, I'm unblemished, I'm untarnished, I'm whatever, I'm perfect, pure consciousness. And you can, you know, tell yourself that story now, and you can have that story to carry around, but that's not going to give you what you want either. What we really want to see is that what that's pointing to. That, and that's, again, fair warning, this will, you, when you see this, this changes everything. So if you want to continue to cling to the old way, if you want to continue to maintain the status quo, please mute this so that you don't hear it. You remain untouched, unblemished, untarnished, unaffected, uncaused, as you always have been, is exactly what I'm pointing to. So I want you to see that nothing has ever been done to you. Now, straight away, when I say that, I even think of arguments against that, right? I know, well, what about that time when my dad spanked me? Okay, so let's not use the edge cases again for just a moment. We can look at those later, but let's just look at the overwhelming majority of our lives. Okay, most of the stuff where we think that person did that thing to me, life did this to me, it's my circumstances, I was born this way, it's so unfair, it's so hard, blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying, look and see, honest to God, tell the truth. How was any of that done to you? You think, well, it's just how it is, but don't settle for that. Don't settle for it. That's just how it is. That's like, that's not a good way to conduct your life. You have to actually look and really see honestly what I'm pointing to, which is that nothing has ever affected you. Nothing. You have never been affected. You just react. And then you, a split second later, tell a story about it, about how it's being done to you. And yes, your reactions are the effect. That is it. There's no cause. There's no cause. You think there's a cause. You imagine there's a cause. But that, can you see how completely unhelpful that is? If you just keep imagining, as most of us do, over and over and over, fixating on the supposed cause, overlooking what's actually happening, what happens? We just continue to do the same thing. And that's why I'm saying this is like, if you have, you might have strong reactions to this. If you really hear this, you might have strong reactions. That's okay. That would be a good sign. I'm not saying you must have strong reactions. I'm just saying if you have strong reactions, that's okay. It just indicates that what I'm saying is really, it's striking at the heart of things for you, because it's demonstrating to you, it's calling you out. You're calling yourself out on all of the lies that you have allowed yourself to believe. Yes, so your mind tells you that dropping the conditioning is hard to do. And yes, of course, because it's impossible for the conditioned mind to do it. Why? Because the conditioned mind is only a collection of those habits, of those thinking, of that kind of thinking. That's it. That's all it is. So when we talk about the conditioned mind, when I talk about the conditioned mind, I'm not talking about some actual entity. I'm just talking about, it's just a shorthand for this, and it's like it falls apart even to even start to talk about it. There's nothing there. Hopefully you can see that. There's nothing there. There's no conditioned mind. There's not even any thoughts, because where do the thoughts go? I mean, can you, like, where does the thought go? It's like here, it's here, and it's not here. It's gone. It's gone before it arrived. But when I talk about the conditioned mind, I'm just using a shorthand just to point to, it's a story, but whatever. It's just a collection. It's just a collection of all of those habits. That's it. And we mistake the habits to mean that, well, to mean something. That's it. We just think that they mean something. And then we think, well, I've got to do something about it. I've got to fix it. I've got to somehow work this whole thing out. And that's what we think. Most of us think that that's what we want. We think we just want to work it out, solve it, fix it, correct it, get it right somehow, set things right. And what I'm saying is that's all that is a chain of compulsive reactions, right? Because it gets like the dominoes, and one gets knocked over and the next one gets knocked over and the next one gets knocked over, and you just keep feeling compelled because you say, God, what a mess it is. I can't give it up now. I've got to try really hard to fix this, because now I'm 70 years old and I don't think I have that much more time in life, and my life is just an ongoing disaster. I can't stand this. I really have to get it right now. I mean, I thought it was urgent when I was 40. Now that I'm 70, it's really urgent. I can't give up. And what I'm saying is that that's more of the same thing that everybody tries to do. They just keep thinking that they're going to outsmart the system. They're going to game the system. They're going to somehow get ahead when nobody else was able to do it. So if you listen to the people who tell you, who seem to have sincerity and clarity, who tell you that they found a way out of suffering, most of those people, I mean, there's some really strange characters out there, but the majority of them will tell you similar things, right? They don't say, I am, look, I mean, there's the exceptions. There's Adi Da, who seemed like very clear for a little while and then went way off in the deep end and started his own cult in Fiji, where he was having sex with all of his the wives of his followers, and told everybody that he's the avatar and they should worship him because that's the one true way. Forget about Jesus and Allah, Adi Da. And but the majority of people who are speaking with any kind of clarity around this kind of thing, they don't claim to be the avatar and worship them. They don't say, I won. Hey everybody, I'm the big winner. They don't say that. They usually say something quite different, right? They usually say, actually, I'm a big loser. Isn't that what they often say? I've lost everything. I've lost everything that could be lost. And in that, I found freedom. Lost everything that could be lost, and I found real freedom. I lost everything that I thought I needed, and I found my life. Isn't that the kind of thing they say? It's the kind of thing I say, because it's true. But we keep thinking somehow I'm gonna win. And we think that winning will satisfy us, whereas it won't. It will not. It absolutely will not satisfy you. Winning would be the worst hell. Because when you win, you have to maintain it. It's like it's a state that comes and then it will go. But when you've really been willing to take a look and see just how much of a liar you are, then you can just finally give up on believing any of the lies. And instead, you can see how none of the things that you thought you wanted actually satisfy you. None of them. You can just look and see, moment to moment. You just have to keep telling the truth. You just look and see. Okay, so I'm having this conversation with my wife. My wife is saying something I don't like. I'm having some strong reactions. I'm having fantasies of I'm leaving. Screw you. I'm all these sorts of fantasies, and I just have to tell the truth, because I can indulge that, but I already know that that's not going to satisfy me. Why would that satisfy me? So what I actually want turns out to be in the place that I have rejected, because what I actually want is to lose. I thought I wanted to win, so I was constantly pursuing winning, and turns out that's not what I want. What I actually want, I have to see through everything that I've been trying to accomplish, all of my compulsive behavior, all of it is designed only to win. And to win for who? To win for my self-image, to win so that I can put myself up on display and get everybody to agree and nod their head and say, yes, big winner, congratulations. And look at that. See that is the end game of what we've all been playing. And look and see that it won't satisfy. If you succeed, if you're the biggest winner, if you have everybody's approval and everybody's love and all the money in the world and all the everything in the world and all of that, will that satisfy you? Please tell the truth. It won't. You got to just look and see. It won't. Definitely won't. And all of the people, all of the teachers who I really think who are trustworthy, say very similar things. They point to the same thing. They say, look at your life, look at the trajectory you're on, look at what you're doing, and see that you are habitually indulging these fantasies about what you want that will not satisfy. And all you have to do is just play it out and see, no, that won't give me what I want. And all of them say the same thing, which is, I found real freedom in a different direction, in a surprising direction. And I found it by discovering what it is that I really want rather than what I think I want. And I can discover that by just looking really honestly moment to moment. And I see, okay, so if I think I need to be my belief is I need to be a big winner. So if I have a disagreement with my wife, well, that's intolerable. I mean, I have to be the big winner. I have to be right. She couldn't be right. So, but look, you've been in this kind of situation. I know you have, so you can just look and see what your experience is. So when you have this compulsive need, compulsive desire to be right, to win, and look and see, will that satisfy you? You know it won't, because you've done it a million times and it never satisfied you. In the moment though, you get caught up and you think, I need this, I must do it. It's like my kids, they get so, they're like, there's 10 minutes before dinner and they're going crazy. And it's like, okay, just do something, just for 10 minutes, just start a little project, just do something so you're not hitting one another, so I can get dinner ready. And they don't care at all about the project at first, but then now dinner's ready and I'm putting dinner on the table and they won't stop. Come on, just you can do this tomorrow Right now, let's just pause and have dinner. You don't need to keep cutting the paper or whatever you're doing. Let's just transition to dinner. But in the heat of the moment, they no, I need to keep cutting the paper. I can't stop this now. This is the most important thing in the world. And we're like that. We didn't really change all that much as we got older. We're still doing the same thing. We just think we're more sophisticated. And so we think, I really want this. I need to be right. I can't let them be right. I can't let me be wrong. I can't lose. I have to win. And we get so wrapped up in it, and then it comes to blows. Not you and me. I know we're more evolved than that. But look, a lot of the world. And we say and do things that we know we shouldn't do, right? Like after the fact, we say, oh, God, that was so stupid. I wish I hadn't done that. So what I'm proposing is we can just see this as it's happening, and we can choose what we really want. Now, at first, you kind of have to take it on faith. So I'm just saying, I'm pointing you in a direction, and I'm suggesting that you take a look here. And you kind of have to just take it on faith that I'm pointing you in a useful direction. Now, I'm not saying leap. Definitely not saying leap. Later I'll say leap. But right now I'm not saying leap. I mean, that would be horrible. I'm not saying, you don't, it's not like that. This isn't like, you know, if you want to join my club, you've got to drink the Kool-Aid. It's not like that. I don't like that kind of thing. I'm saying, look, I'm pointing you in a direction. Just check it out. Just look. Just see if you can see this. Just see if you are able to recognize what I'm pointing to. And if you're able to, continue to explore it. And there will come a time when you will have taken enough steps along the way that you'll be getting closer and closer to the edge. You just, like, there's the edge, and you get a little closer and you can see a little bit further. It's like if you're at the Grand Canyon, you know, like I don't know, maybe you don't even know about the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is a really big canyon. Okay, you get closer to the edge, and as you get closer, you can see more of what's down there. You can't really see what's down there until you really get right over the edge. And then if you really want to see what's down there, you got to leap. Or you could climb down. You don't have to leap, I guess. Leaping is probably too violent. So that's another thing. You don't even have to leap. Eventually, you kind of, there are certain points at which you have to leap a little bit, but they don't have to be big leaps even, just little leaps. But I'm saying we just get a little closer so we familiarize ourselves. So just, I'm giving a direction. I'm just saying, look in this way, just see, test it out for yourself. Become convinced for yourself through your own inquiry. And then you'll get to points at which you'll realize that you'll see very clearly that you are straining to maintain your grasp on what is hurting you. You'll see it. You'll see this disagreement is happening, and you notice this impulse to be right. I can't be wrong. I have to be right. And you'll just notice this wells up in you, and you say, that's it, I'm going for it. And you just turn a blind eye, and you just go for it, and you just let it rip. Oh, I don't want it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to say it. And then you just, oh yeah, well, how about this? And you let it rip, and as soon as it comes out of your mouth, you say, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. But you did it. Yeah, I know. Being right is, it's such an interesting phenomenon, and that's why I'm pointing it out, because you look and see, what are you going to get from this? And in the heat of the moment, you think it is exactly like a drug. Yeah, in the heat of the moment, you believe you must. You think you're compelled to do it. In fact, it often happens early on before we even start to see this. And maybe for some of you, you don't even see it enough at this point. Maybe it just happens so fast, you don't even see it happening. You don't even know there's a choice. You don't even know that this is just your conditioning playing out. You actually think this is just, that you think you're doing it. You think that you're actually choosing somehow wisely. You think that this is somehow like you're scheming, you're defending yourself, you're doing something righteous. I don't know. You can have all kinds of delusions. But when you start to look, you'll see this is not at all what I want, because it doesn't satisfy at all. You could be the most correct, right, righteous person in the world, and you could have a big badge and a medal and a crown and a throne, and everybody could agree that you are the most righteous person in the whole world, and you will be miserable. Right? You know that that's true. So you know it's not what you want, and that's why I'm saying when you start to see it, when these things happen in your life, as they do every day, many times every day, when there's something that occurs in which to which you react, just look and see what's actually happening. What you will see, I promise you, is that it's not what you believe. There's nothing that compels you, actually. There's nothing that compels you to do what you do. There's nothing that compels you to react. There's nothing that compels you to feel the way that you feel. There's nothing that compels you to do any of that. So when you see that, that's why I'm saying you'll see that you're a liar. You'll see that you have been lying to yourself, telling yourself all these stories about what is being done to you and how you're a victim and how all these people are doing these things to you. And you'll see that you've been using those excuses to justify your ongoing reactivity. Okay, so there's some things, some questions coming across, and I'm going to look at those and respond to some of those. Wow, this is 73. Let me see. Okay. I might miss some of them, so if I do, you can resend them. But I see one here. It says, do you find that these impulses have diminished in your own experience, or just that the compulsion to obey them is diminished, but the impulses are still there just as they always were? Am I way off here? It's a good question. Let me, I'll come, I know the screen freezes when I switch over to that, so I'll switch back. Have the impulses reduced or changed? There's more space. I think this is actually an important point, because what can happen is, in this whole mentality of winning, which is so, I don't know what the right word, pervasive. It's insidious. I think insidious is that the right word? Insidious. Because you don't really see it. Kind of sneaks up on you. You don't really see all the ways in which it's kind of like got its tentacles into things. And so we think we're constantly like, okay, I thought I can win this way. This is my plan for winning. And then oh, that's not going to work. And then we say, oh, here's my new plan for winning. And our new plan for winning becomes, I'm going to lose. You know, we hear like, oh, losing is the way. Okay, I'm going to lose so that I can win. And so we're constantly thinking we're going to win, or we're wanting to win. We think that winning is somehow going to help us. So then we formulate, we want to know, okay, well, are the impulses going to diminish? Will they go away? Will that be what winning is like? And actually, there's just more space. Not even more space, there's just more awareness of space. So, and again, this goes back to me, this is an important point. I'm sure there are people, I'm not sure, I think there are probably people who are capable of, they know certain little tricks that can provoke state changes in people. Obviously not cause the state change, but they know how to do little tricks to provoke somebody to produce a state change within themselves. And so if I knew how to do that really well, I could be very successful in that, it'd be like a show business sort of thing. But that's not really what I do. So I'm not really big. I'm a big fan of state changes. I mean, I think state changes are nice, but the problem is just that they don't really satisfy. State changes don't really satisfy. So if I think that so a reduction or diminishing of the impulses sounds maybe desirable in the same way that a state change would sound desirable, but the problem is if and when they come back, what do? You don't know. And so I'm more interested in I'm more interested in freedom. I'm more interested in freedom and true satisfaction than I am in state changes. Even if you could say, I'll give you 100 years of bliss, 100 years is going to come to an end at some point, about 100 years from now. Okay, so I'm not as interested in that. I'm more interested in clarity, because clarity is what is going to allow us to discover satisfaction in any circumstance, any situation, any state. And so to me, I'm actually not all that concerned in the impulses one way or the other. What I'm more interested in is, let me see how do I say this, is I'm just interested in, am I seeing this clearly? So the impulses, when not seen clearly, we are going to confuse the impulses for the meaning that we have associated with them. And when that happens, we're very likely to simply react. And what I'm interested in is, if I just see clearly, then I see what's actually happening. And then I'm not compelled. Yeah, it's decoupling. Exactly right. Yeah, I'm not compelled to do anything. And this can happen with any, and that's why I'm saying we don't know what any of it is. We think we know what it is, and we believe our thoughts. So I wish I could really explain this clearly so that everybody could understand it, because this is a big deal. When you believe your thoughts, most of us believe our thoughts so unquestioningly, we're so blind to our participation in the process that we genuinely believe that we know something. We actually believe that we don't have a broken compass. We actually think our compass is working. And we think we know for sure that way is the wrong way. We really think we know for sure. Can you see how you look at your life? I promise you, you will see that you have been straining pretty much ceaselessly for decades, all to maintain the status quo. I mean, just if you just look and tell the truth about what's actually happening, you'll have to see that this is true. Because you look, how much has your life really fundamentally changed? How many of your big problems in life have really, really changed? Good private comment, yes. But that's exactly right. That's the thing, is that we just continue to believe that we know something. We look and we say, we reject all of these things. We say, not that person, not that time, not that message, not that thing, that's to this, it's to that. We come up with all the reasons why not, or why. And what we're overlooking is that we are making all that effort. Do you see, like, when we're concerned, when we're all wrapped up in judging something or someone, who's suffering? We are. I heard somebody say a long time ago that but they were talking about, I think, resentment, or yeah, I think resentment or unforgiveness, and they were saying it's like eating poison and expecting the other person to die. And that's basically what we're doing to ourselves all the time. We're consuming this poison, the poison of our own strain. And we're imagining wrongly that somehow that has something to do with something or someone else. We think that that somehow is going to do something to help us, when in fact, all we're doing, all that's happening, the whole thing that we have identified as a problem and claim that somebody else is doing to us, is only what we are doing. It's only that we are invested in these foolish habits, and we just dig our heels in. We just say, well, I gotta win. I can't stand even the thought of letting somebody else win, because they're not as clever as me, as smart as me, as whatever. I'm right. So there's a couple other comments I want to respond to. Okay, so this question is, it says, this is something I recognized for a while now, and it was something physical that caused the trauma. Most of it is gone now, but I am having trouble interacting with that person. Should I try to interact anyway? Is there a way to follow up with you? Yeah, you can always follow up with me. Just send me an email. And so if you say that somebody caused, okay, so I think we need to just parse this out a little bit. Okay, you say somebody else caused the trauma. I would disagree, because we have to get clear on what are we talking about if we talk about trauma. Sometimes we use this term in a vague way. So let's get clear on it. What is the trauma? I mean, a trauma is something that it is something that appears to persist. We don't, if you don't remember, you say, if something's unimportant to you, You don't call it a trauma. You call it a trauma because it seems to persist. It seems to continue to have effect. So if it's continuing to have effect, how is that? How is that happening? And if you look, you'll see that there's no way that somebody else can be doing that to you. If it's persisting, nobody else is doing that to you. Now that's, I understand that some people are going to have some strong reactions to that. I get some, every once in a while, I get some people who have some very, very strong reactions to some of the things that I say. And I understand people often are very triggered when I suggest that they're not victims. And I understand because we have an awful lot invested, like our entire identity, every one of us, our entire identity is dependent 100% upon being a victim. The identity is a victim. There's no way to have an identity that's not a victim, because you can't have an identity unless it's something that's a victim. I mean, it's like identity is victim. But the thing that I really want to point out is that what I'm proposing is it's like a reclaiming of authentic power. It's to cease being a victim. It's to end the trauma. So you can just start to see how much effort goes into maintaining the identity as the traumatized victim. And then you can see that that is going on. And if you want to speak now, then you can do that. I just want to say you'll be in the video that's being recorded, which will be on YouTube publicly. So if you speak in this video, you'll be consenting.
Yeah. No. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. This is the problem. I have actually discovered what you're talking about because of these, kept having the trauma reactions, and I got that handled, and I saw how it was me causing it. But the actual event was a physical event that I was actually set up. There was, like, you know, the sibling stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
I was beat pretty bad, where there were welts on my body and bleeding from a buckle of a belt.
Yeah.
Without going into the whole drama or why it happened, but I was told my whole life, this is what caused the trauma.
Yeah.
That imagined it, that it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when somebody would get me to doubt my reality, I would go right back into that. But I have actually learned what you're talking about, and I actually have recovered from all of that. But it's really hard to talk to this person because they still deny reality, even not about that, but, like, for instance, when my mom died and I went to the hospital to see her and she told me I never came. So my reality is still being denied.
Yeah.
I just kind of finally decided maybe I just don't need to be, you know, involved with this person, because nobody else can cause me to doubt my reality anymore. I'm good with that. I've done what you're talking about, but I find it really difficult to interact with this person.
Well, sure. So first of all, you never, I don't believe there's any mandate to interact with anybody unless it happens, in which case obviously it's happening. But so I'm not proposing that you need to have therapy to try and resolve this with this particular person. But what I will say is that you can definitely look without having to even communicate with the person. You can just look within yourself right now, and you could just imagine. Okay, you could just remember a time in which you were speaking with this person, and whatever you don't like, whatever this experience is that you don't like, you can remember when that happened, this experience of you doubting your reality or whatever, however you want to describe it, and look to see how that actually happens. So, so does this happen if you were speaking on the phone with the person?
Now, what I'm trying to say is the actual event really bothered me, but the thing that was the recurring trauma was telling me it didn't happen.
Right.
So I carried that around a long time, but I have actually gotten that under control with exactly what you're talking about. It's like all of a sudden I saw, oh my God, I'm doing this to me. I mean, I get that, but I still have trouble with the person's behavior. And I'm wondering, how do you get to do I need to get to the bottom of something like that? Or am I making myself crazy? I'm fine not talking to him, but maybe there's something else there for me to see.
Well, of course there is. Because it's bothering you, and that's what I'm saying, is that what you can see is that what's bothering you is just more of what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of one of the reasons I decided, hey, this is not worth talking to her. It's just not.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that a feasible thing to? Because when I don't think about her, and it's not like something that, you know, I really don't want to. But it's like she's my sister, and you know, those are the guilt feelings that come up, and yeah.
And that's what I'm. So I can't give you an answer at that level because I don't have access to that kind of information. I have no idea what will or will not happen. But what I can say is that only you can really be honest about it and look to see. I mean, it sounds a little bit like it's bothering you, and since it's bothering you, then I would suggest that there's something there that. And when I say something there, I don't mean some deeper hidden meaning. I mean there's something that you're presently doing that's bothering you.
Yeah,
And
well, my thought is I really just would like to go on my life without her. On the other hand, I have this guilt thing because it's a sibling.
yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, so you're already seeing it at a certain level, and what I'm saying is you can just notice how you actually maintain that, how you recreate that over and over and over. So if you just observe your experience, you'll notice that there are these competing conditioning. Okay?
Yeah.
You've got, well, on the one hand, you've got the conditioning that says, just be done with her, don't have anything to do with her. And then on the other hand, you've got conditioning that says, well, she's my sister, it should. And so neither of these is true. Neither of them, because both of those are strategies trying to, really all they can do is try to maintain the status quo, which would be just more of the same. You see, it's already what's been going on. It's just now it's a slight variation because now the bind has changed, but it's still a bind.
Yes.
And so,
that's,
so the status quo is to maintain the bind, and you can continue to change the bind many, many times indefinitely, and you can continue to believe that something has fundamentally changed when in fact it's still just more of the same. Or the alternative is that you can, and this is why I said, you know, this is a challenging approach just because it means being very, very honest and seeing how you're lying to yourself all the time. And you can see then that neither is the truth. What's actually true is just to see that you're creating the bind and that you are already inherently free, because there's nothing that binds you. It's just your belief in the bind that makes it so.
well, believe me, when this complex of the trauma fell apart, it was like deck of a card or dominoes, just unbelievably, I mean, totally free and from that particular trauma, right? Now, my first inkling, and maybe I shouldn't have even talked about this, is to just, why do you bother talking to a person who's constantly got a different reality than you, and that, you know, you're just going to end up here again. And that's what I didn't want. So I stopped talking to her. But now I'm realizing that there's something, it's like, why should I have to do that if I'm really free? So that's kind of where I'm at. Right.
But that's also more of but you can hopefully you can see that's more of the status quo, because that's more of the ways in which the bind is what is familiar to you, what you, it's your status quo. So your conditioning is going to continue to try and get you into the bind. And it will come up with infinite ways to try and
this is a totally different feeling than what the trauma was. This is just kind of a guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is and it isn't. I mean, obviously I don't know your exact experience, but from what you've described, the thing that I think you could look at to see is what is, there's a commonality between them, which is, again, it's just the bind. It's the bind quality, where that's what you're recreating. I completely believe you that you had this experience, this liberating experience, and that can be very powerful. And what I'm saying is, let that continue to reverberate, so that you can see all of the other things that surface as a result of that, are all the other strategies in there about how to recreate the bind. And you can, the thoughts will say, this is different, this is new, I already overcame something, this is not like that, this is not related to that, this is different.
Yes.
Whereas in fact, you can see, if you really are telling the truth, that it's really more of the same, because, which does not negate anything that you've said. It does not negate the liberation. All I'm saying is, it's actually offering to you the possibility of more liberation. It's just surfacing all of these other entanglements so that you can actually see them, and you can recognize that you can't win. You're not going to get this right. There's not a right. You can't say, okay, I'm writing her off forever, and you can't say, oh, I'm going to get right with her. You can't do either.
Right.
So what's actually possible and available is what's actually here. And sometimes it's going to be whatever it is. You don't know. Maybe she'll call you, maybe she won't call you. Maybe you'll call her. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I find I'm avoiding her.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that's the giveaway. Is when you see that you are making more effort, then that's the giveaway. That's always the giveaway, because and this is actually so the how do I say this? One of the signs, one of the indicators of success, we'll say, with the approach that I'm proposing, is that your experience becomes increasingly effortless. Whereas in the past, our experience was very effortful. We were constantly working hard. We were constantly working to defend ourselves, protect ourselves, inflate ourselves, project ourselves, create ourselves, all these different kinds of things that we were working hard all the time, day and night. It's exhausting. And as we increasingly have clarity on what we really want, then it becomes effortless. All of the effort falls away, because what we realize, what we get clarity on that we actually want, I guess you could say, is effortlessness. I mean, we just don't want to be straining anymore. We don't want to be making all of this unnecessary effort just to produce our own suffering.
So what you're talking about. That's what I experience. Is like my whole life is totally different now, much, much freer, but I still have these little spots.
Yeah, right. I understand. And that's what I'm saying is, when in some ways, when we have the bigger the transformation experience is, the more likely it is that we will cling to that as our new identity. And so then we don't want to be, it's like, oh, I had this big liberation experience, I guess I'm liberated. So then now we have to cling to we don't have to, we choose to cling to this identity as I'm liberated because I had this liberation experience. And then we don't know what to do with all the stuff that comes up, because we say, well, that doesn't match with my identity. My identity is that I'm liberated. Why am I having this experience when this experience seems, I don't know, kind of like a bind? And I'm proposing that we can view it differently. We can just see that the liberation experience is a direction. It's not the ultimate arrival. It's just a direction. It's a confirmation of the direction, and we can then just continue with that direction, rather than needing to be right or be perfect or enlightened or liberated or anything. Because look, I am imperfect. I am. I mean, the things that I talk about from my experience. I recognize these patterns within myself, and I see them playing out. I'm not an avatar. I live a human life, and I have human relationships, and I have all of the complexities of that. And if I need to be perfect and perfectly enlightened, and that's my identity, well, that's pretty stressful. I don't really want to do that. I'm much more interested in the direction. When I have, it's so much, you talk about liberation, it's much more liberating to have a direction than it is to have an identity. I could have the most enlightened identity, but that's not nearly as enjoyable or wonderful as a direction. And the direction just, oh, go ahead.
So just handle these things one at a time as they come up, and try not to tie it to anything. Just, okay, here's something else I have to work on.
I wouldn't even look at it as something that you have to work on. Because that puts it in like, then you're gonna.
I heard it as I said it.
You already know what the goal, what the right outcome should be. Whereas the direction just says, well, here, this is happening. This is getting your attention. So just look at it openly. Don't assume that you know, because everything that you think you know is coming from your broken compass, which is going to steer you in all the wrong directions. The one right direction is what's actually here. What's actually right here is presenting itself. And if it's uncomfortable, or if you're uncomfortable, more like, then all the more reason to just see it. And when I say see it, what I mean is just to see. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to work on anything. You don't have to perfect anything. You can just see this opportunity for what it is, which is it's presenting to you something that you can then just see more clearly. You can just see, this is what I'm doing. Because if the phone rings and let's say you don't have caller ID, I know that's not possible these days, but let's just pretend. So you don't know who it is, and you just pick it up. It could be anybody. You don't know. It could be somebody calling to tell you that you've just won $1 million. It could be anything. You don't know. But if it's your sister, then all of a sudden, the second you've identified who it is, you notice what happens. There's something in you that happens. And that's what's interesting.
Yes,
is to notice that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it. I just didn't know whether or not, there's something I should do with it, but I guess there's not. I should just keep living with it how it is until it changes.
Well, maybe, or another alternative is, so we could try it together right now. So I don't know your sister, but I can just imagine. I will do this with you. So I can imagine your sister calling, and I can imagine picking up the phone, and I can imagine hearing her voice, and I can imagine how maybe a second before the phone rang, maybe I wasn't thinking about her. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was maybe just staring out the window at a clear sky and everything's fine. And then I get the call and I answer the call, and all of a sudden something changes. And I notice, ooh, I don't like that. So then there's the possibility, which is very unappealing to me, of giving attention to a lot of thoughts about it. What should I do? What does she want? What does this mean? What should I do? All that kind of stuff.
Nope, won't do that anymore.
Yeah, or I can just remain here as this is happening, just as I was a moment ago staring out the window at the clear sky. So I'm just staring out the window at the clear sky, and there's sound happening, and I'm noticing the sensations, and I'm noticing the habits of tension, and I'm noticing that I'm aware of all of that. And I don't need to solve the problem that I'm imagining there might be, and I don't need to do anything about it, and I don't need to figure this out, and I don't need to plan for the future, and I don't need to have a response in advance, and I don't need to have I don't need to know who she is or what her motives are. I can just actually just be here right now. And if I do this now, like really right now as we're speaking, if I'm just imagining this now, what that does for me is it connects me to what it is that I really want. Because by seeing what I don't want, I see all these possibilities of my habits, all of the compulsive behavior, all of the ways in which I attempt to win, be right, get approval, etc. And I can just see all those things, and I can just, as I'm just the same as looking out the window at a clear sky, there's nothing I need to do about it. I'm just aware of it, and as I'm aware of it, I'm just seeing all the ways that I habitually produce my own suffering.
Okay, that's a good, I haven't heard from her. I don't expect to, but if it happens, this is kind of a good exercise for me to keep in mind.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is you can do it now. That's the thing about it, is the more because, and this is
it's like a rehearsal.
well, yeah, I was going to say something similar, and then I realized it's not even it is a rehearsal, and it's not a rehearsal. It's a rehearsal, and it's the real thing, because the real thing is not any different than that anyway. I mean, if she calls, and this is really, really honestly, this is like the whole point of everything I was trying to say. So I'm glad that you brought this up, because the thing is, whether she's on the phone, okay, but it's obvious if she's on the phone, if she calls you on the phone, well, what's happening? It's just some sound, isn't it? I mean, that's all that's happening. It's just sound. If she's in person, it's the same thing. And if you're just imagining it, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're all the same thing. So it's like, it's not even a rehearsal, it's the real deal. Because when you do it, what's happening is you're revealing to yourself, you don't even need to wait for her. That's the brilliant thing about it. I would encourage you not to wait. I would encourage nobody here to wait for whoever or whatever you think you need to wait for. You can do it right now, because all that was ever happening was happening within you anyway. So it was only your own reaction.
So is it a good strategy then, when it pops into my head, to just go through the exercise?
Well, as far as strategies go, that's not a bad one.
Okay. That's the way I'll think towards it the next time it just pops up.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think
it just pops up. I don't agonize about it all day. It just pops up, and I'm like,
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah, I mean, the more often, and I often say this. What do I say? I say, frequency is more important than duration, or different variations on that same thing. And what I mean by that is, don't wait for the, you know, sometimes we think, oh, I've got a big plan. I've got a good big plan. I'm working toward my big plan, and I'm getting all of my things assembled, and I'm doing my training, and someday in the future, I'm going to do this big thing, and the big thing is going to be the big bang of happiness and liberation. Well, I think a much better approach is just a little bit at a time. Just every time that you notice, and it doesn't have to be just her, anytime anything comes up that is where you have an aversion, where there's a conditioned avoidance, or there's some kind of reactivity of any kind, that's a great opportunity. Just pause right there, and it literally only is just a couple of seconds, just to pause, observe, notice what's actually happening, and notice there's sensation happening, there's tension, there's reactivity, there's sound. And I don't know what any of it means. I really honestly don't know what it means. I have lots of opinions, but if I just look, I see, I don't know. It's like, again, looking at the sky, you know, maybe there's some clouds in the sky, and for a moment, the mind says, oh, look, it's a clown. And then 5 seconds later, it says, no, it's a dragon. 10 seconds later, it says, no, it's a boat. And it's none of those things, of course. But that's what we can, but when we give ourselves just that little bit of space just to see it changing as it does, that's how we recognize it's not a clown or a dragon or a boat. It's just this play that is occurring. And we can see the same in our experience all the time. Whenever there's something that the mind latches onto and says, oh, I know something, I know I don't like this, or I'm bothered by this, or there's a problem, or there's something, all we have to do is just pause and just look at it as we're looking at, just like we're looking at an open sky. And then we see it as it is. We see it as it is through the contrast of what we think it is. We think it's all these things, and then it's revealed to us that it's none of those things. And our own freedom is revealed to us, because then we realize all of the effort and all the strain that I've habitually been making, trying to grasp for the thing, so that I could know what to do and how to win and how to protect myself. It turns out all of that was totally unnecessary. And so we can just see that more and more clearly. And then we're giving ourselves increasingly permission just to remain as this open, clear sky. And we don't need to grasp at anything. The clearer, the more often that we see that, and it, like I said, it literally only takes a few seconds. The more often we see that, I mean, do that 10 times a day, 20 times a day, 100 times a day.
So this dilemma, quote unquote dilemma that I'm in, is actually a great opportunity to do some practice.
Yes, absolutely. And that's true of everything. I mean, and that's why I say, to me, the arriving at some destination or some state isn't nearly as desirable as having the direct knowledge and experience of what I want and where that is and what clarity really is and how to access that, because that is ultimately, to me, that's ultimately liberating. Because liberation then is, you know, if liberation is just something that I'm going to arrive at, then it's really been reduced to a state, and that's not going to be satisfying. But what will be satisfying is this ability to see clearly in all states and as the states come and go. And so in my life, there are plenty of states that come and go, and because it's a human life, there are all of the things that happen in a human life. I'm moving, my wife and I just bought some land, and we're starting to build a house on it, and there are neighbors, and you know, the neighbors have some of the neighbors have some different ideas about things than I do, and there's all those kinds of dynamics. And so I have some feelings about that. And I could say, you know, if I had to cling to an enlightened identity, then there wouldn't be any room for that. But then I wouldn't really be free. But to me, real freedom is the freedom to allow all of it, to welcome all of it, to be open to all the experience that comes. And the more that we open to that, the more open to that, the more open that experience becomes. And then back to that question that somebody asked earlier about, you know, do the impulses diminish? My answer to that was similar. It's just, I'm yes and no, but it's not so important. What's more important is the clarity, the ability to just see what is as it is, because then there's nothing to cling to.
I see the value. I see the value, having overcome like the biggest dilemma in my life already. I see the value in this. I mean, I just see it really clearly, but I'm just not sure. It's like, I guess I don't have to feel like I'm well just because I still have these feelings about, this dilemma that I have, right?
That's right. That's exactly it. Yes, that's right. That's perfect. Yes, you're not, that's what I was really trying to get at, is that the enlightened identity, you can let the enlightened identity go, because then in place of the enlightened identity, there's real freedom. And the real freedom is the real freedom for all the experiences to come, because they always have come. That it's not, if we're talking about something that's going to happen in the future, then it's always going to be in the future. We're never going to arrive there. We're never going to arrive at that perfected state. Never, never, ever, ever, ever. We might think we do, but then we'll realize that we didn't.
I get it.
And yeah, great.
Thank you for that. And thank you everybody for being so patient.
Great. Thank you for the question. I'm sure it's been helpful for others. Okay, so let me just check the time. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up, but I do see there's the one more. So I'll respond to this one more. Let me see if that's still. A lot of things here. I think I'll just. I think this is the last one. So it says, when I was a child, I had a lot of bliss with a close one, but then bliss was taken away when bad stuff happened. So when I met the close one, the bliss wasn't there, because I know I am straining, but I am struggling to find the lesson of this. I can't depend on a nice state, but I felt like the nice state was the status quo naturally. So I don't know all of the, and based on what you've just written there, obviously I don't know much more, and we won't get into it right now. But what I can say about that is that it seems like you're suggesting, or you're describing that you're wanting to recreate a past state, because that, well, I don't know why, but you are. I mean, that's what you're describing. So you can just see how, and this is a great question, because I think everybody can relate to this in some way. It's just, how do we know? How do you know? Like here's one. It's a similar one that many people could probably relate to. Anybody who's married maybe could relate to this. That there's if you've been married for a while, then you probably notice that the relationship changes over time. And a lot of people, marriages don't go well because they want to recreate some past state that they identified as desirable. And if that state doesn't happen as often or in the ways that they want, then they blame it on the other person, or they say there's something wrong with the relationship, because the relationship doesn't seem to be. It seemed their story was in the past, the relationship produced a certain state in them that they liked. Now they don't have that state. So they say, I guess we've fallen out of love. Well, then of course they go on, marry somebody else, have the same problem sooner or later. So we can save ourselves a lot of grief if we cease to try and recreate states from the past. I mean, really, fundamentally, if we can just give up on trying to recreate things from the past, we can become open, we can allow ourselves to open to what's actually here. Okay, one more, you have one more thing to say about that. Let me look. I feel the bliss when strain eases up. Yeah, well, great. But this is the thing, is that if the strain, if the bliss is apparent when the strain is not here, then that suggests that what you're talking about is simply the absence of the strain. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying we can all observe how much strain we are making trying to create or maintain or sustain something, that some sort of state that we think is necessary or desirable, or to avoid something that we think is undesirable. And when we just simply stop making all the effort, if we're lucky, instantly what's revealed is this okayness, let's just say. You call it bliss, but we'll just call it okayness so that we're not overstating things. And that's it. That's all I'm really pointing to, is that what we're actually wanting is available and totally obvious when we cease to try and find it somewhere else. When we stop trying to avoid what's actually here, and we just, it's like I was describing, like just looking into the open sky. There's no, you don't have an expectation. You don't demand something of the sky. Sky, make me feel in love. You don't do that. It's just an open sky. The sky, it's like the sky just receives everything. And we receive the sky. And there's just a receptivity happening. And that's actually, we have these glimpses of that all the time, every day. Every day we have little glimpses of that, but we overlook them because of the habit of going back to trying to reproduce the status quo. All in the name of, I'm trying to get what I want, but we don't know what we want. So I'm just saying, we have to see that everything that we've been trying to do is not giving us what we want. When we see that, then we see how much strain we've been making, how much effort we've been making, trying to create some kind of state or regain something or protect ourselves or whatever may be the case. And then we can experiment with not doing that, to just become effortless, just to stop trying to protect or defend. Well, and yes, of course, in a sense, it's risking it all, but that's why I was saying earlier, you don't need to risk it all right now. You don't need to leap over the edge right now. All you need to do is just look. If you just keep looking, you'll see, just keep looking, you see, okay, I've got all these thoughts, I've got all these opinions, I've got all these fantasies, I've got all these stories, I've got all these narratives, but for just a moment, I'm not going to give my attention to that, because, you know, you've given a lot of attention to that. It's not going to be harmful. At the very least, we could say it's not going to be harmful just for like 5 minutes of your day. You don't give attention to all that stuff, and instead just look at what's actually happening. And yes, if what you are doing, if the strain is to cling to your idea of bliss, then yes, that means letting it go. But you know, just for a few moments. You don't need to. It doesn't need to be that big of a deal. You don't need to blow it up like it's going to be some sort of life or death sort of thing. It's a lot gentler than that. Just for a moment. I mean, you know, sometimes we get ourselves in these positions. Oftentimes we get ourselves in these positions where we think, I can't let go even for half a second. If I do, I'll die. I'll be tortured. So maybe half a second is too much. Maybe just for a tenth of a second. You know, and I talk about sometimes it's like learning to ride your bicycle without holding on to the handlebars. Now, if you've had this experience, you know probably at first you don't just take your hands off and say, "Look, Ma, no hands." You maybe just you're a little cautious. You just take one hand off a little bit, take the other hand off a little bit, both of them off a little bit, and you get more familiar with um, with that reality. And so you can do the same here. You don't need to. You don't. You know, you're saying you're going to do it all day. That's maybe not the best approach. I would say that's why I say frequency is more important than duration. Don't try to sustain it. Don't try to sustain riding your bike without your hands on the handlebars, so to speak, because that's going to produce. It's going to overwhelm you. It's going to produce a lot of unnecessary stress. It will be much more effective if you just do it frequently for a short time. So whenever you notice, this is for everybody, whenever you notice any kind of distress, strain, discomfort, anger, frustration, impatience, etc., just pause for 1 second. Literally, if you just pause for 1 second and just don't grasp anything. Could be 5 seconds if you really insist. But my point is, don't try to sustain it more than that. It will naturally blossom. It will naturally blossom when you just continue to make the space for it, but not so much if there's a kind of aggression built into it. So if you say, 5 seconds, well, okay, but then you say, well, what about 10 seconds? And then you say, well, what about 25 seconds? And then you say, what about 1 minute? I could do it for 1 minute. And then you say, what about 10 minutes? I think I could do it for 10 minutes. And you start to build in this aggression to it because you maybe mistakenly think that that's going to be better somehow. And I don't think it will be better. I think it will be better to be gentler and then just make it frequent. So rather than doing it for 60 seconds at a time, it would be better to do it for 30 times for 2 seconds, you see, and it doesn't need to be all in rapid succession. It can be just whenever you notice, anytime you notice that something seems to be bothering you, that's it. It's really like, it can actually just be that simple. Anytime anything is bothering you, maybe it's the wrong phrase to use. Anytime you're bothered, just pause. And just don't give your attention to any of the thoughts, any of your memories, your history, your interpretations, your beliefs. Just open like you're staring out into the open sky. You can email me about the rest. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here. See you next time. Bye for now.